Hey everyone, it's Paul Stevens here with iGo Sales and Marketing for another great tutorial. Today's kind of a surprise for me. Hopefully, it's a surprise for you, but um, I have been sort of reluctantly dreading learning how to customize the front end in SuiteCRM 8 for the last couple of years. And it pretty much stuck with SuiteCRM 7 as much as possible because of the ability to customize the front end and do things like business logic, populating fields, pulling in data from other modules to populate fields, and all kinds of different UI stuff that you really need in a proper business system. Anyway, I was under the impression, I'm sure many people are, including you watching this, that you had to add the logic in and then you had to rebuild Angular every time you did this. That's not the case. So I'm just going to move myself out of the way here a little bit, and I'll just take you through what I've discovered. So there are a bunch of examples on the SuiteCRM dev site here that you can follow. My example kind of combines two or three different ones, but that was kind of my project for today, and I'll take you through it. But there's like logical operators, there's like display logic, like show this field if this other field equals that. There's this field is required if this field equals that. There's you can show and hide fields based on backend calculation. You can update a field value. You can update a field based on a backend calculation. So you could like create a commission or the interest rate or all kinds of stuff. You can, call like an API externally and then populate the front end, all kinds of stuff. It just opens up a wide range of customizations that you can do. So quickly, I'll just show you what I did. So for example, in the cases module, one of the things with cases in particular is if you're a service company, you typically have an address associated with it. So like, if I choose the account, I don't want to have to go and manually type in the address of where, the service is, right? And I mean, one way you can do it is you can do it like a back-end hook where when the record saves, you go and populate the address. But that's kind of awkward for the person entering it because they don't really know what the address is until after they save it. In SuiteCRM 7, you would do this very easily with a function called populate list. And you would just basically say, get the street address from the related field that is the account name, okay? And it was very simple to implement. But in SuiteCRM 8, like I said, I thought that you had to do all kinds of stuff, build a dev environment and then, change the code and then recompile it. And that's what I was envisioning. Turns out it's pretty straightforward. And again, all the examples are on the site. I'll show you what this one does. So basically, I'm going to just remove the addresses here. And because it's already selected, so it doesn't have to actually be saved. It can be just selected. I'm pulling the values from like the front end, okay? So as the person's entering this, as long as they select the account, they can get the street address, get the province, and get the, city and province, and then done, okay? I would have loved one button here and then populate all three. But the back-end process just isn't that robust enough to deal with more than one field at a time. So anyway, this is a good compromise. It's still very easy to enter. Looks clean, works well, works fast. Save the record, all is good. Okay, so how do you do that? Okay, so again, I'm not going to go through in too much detail, but I'm going to show you all the different components. Okay, so if you are familiar with doing this in SuiteCRM 7, you know that you would have to go to your detail views, and that in detail view, so this is going to be like in SuiteCRM 8, like public, legacy, custom, modules, cases, metadata, and then detail views, okay? And then you would go and you would find your field here. So this is the service. Well, let's start with this one, the service address street, okay? And then you would add into this array like the populate list function, and it would go and look it up and populate it, and pretty much that was it. You were done, okay? It's a little bit more complicated in 8, but it's still you still start in the same place. So what you do here is without this is all the custom stuff. So normally you just get the name of the field and the label, okay? But I'm going to add, and again, this is all in the documentation, I'm going to add field actions. I am going to give it a container class. I'm going to give it a position. And then here's where the magic happens. I'm going to give it actions, okay? And I call this action populate street. And the key, okay, so this here is the SuiteCRM function that does this, okay? It's called calculate backend value. Unfortunately, a couple things that are downsides. One, you can only populate one field at a time. It would be nice if I could populate multiple fields. The other issue is that the parameters that it passes are basically, the ones that it comes with, like process and the name of the process, and then expanded true or not, okay? I would love to pass a whole bunch of values over to my handler, and then I could do all kinds of stuff. Like I could build the handler once and accept, look up the field name from, the module kind of thing. And then I could do the handler once and use it everywhere in SuiteCRM. However, that didn't happen. I spent a whole day on this. This is the best I could do. But, for my first attempt, it's not bad. Okay, so I want it to be a button, so I've added a button class, okay? And then the parameters are basically, this is like the name of your process, okay? So I'll show you what this means in a second. Okay, so you'll notice it has a label key here, populate address. So just like in old SuiteCRM, you're going to need to add a language file. So in public, legacy, custom, extension, application, extension, language, you're going to find your language file. So all I did was, basically make them all get from account. So populate address, get from account, populate city, get from account, populate province, get from account. Okay. And then, so here's the SuiteCRM 8 magical part of doing this. Okay. So in extensions, so right in the root of SuiteCRM, you're going to find an extension folder. Okay. And I created my own folder here where I'm going to put all my own tools in it. Okay. So I called it iGo tools. Okay. And if I go into iGo tools, you create a config folder and an extension PHP. And basically that just says, enable this. That's it. Nothing else. Okay. So that takes care of the front end from the detail view file, the naming in the language file, and now we're telling it we've got custom handlers, okay, and that they're in this iGo tools folder, okay. So below the iGo tools folder, we also have modules, cases, service, fields, okay, and then here's my 3 handlers, okay. So here's the street handler, and basically all of this stuff at the top comes from the you follow the guide, basically cut and paste it from there. What you do need to define is the process type. So remember I showed you process street was in the detail view. Okay, so that tells it the process type that is going to be executed. Okay, and I have a function here, the public function run, which again comes from the guide. But what I'm doing here is I'm first, getting the options from the record, and then I'm going and looking up the account ID. And then from the account ID, I would have loved to have used the bean, but I couldn't figure out how to get to the bean from here. So I just did a SQL query to look up from the account the shipping address and billing street. okay? And what I'm doing here is I'm going to look first if there's a shipping address, because that would be the first one to take. If there's no shipping address, then default to the billing address is basically the logic, okay? And then it just returns the value, okay? And that value is what populates the field, okay? Same thing for city. It looks exactly the same. Everything is the same, except for it's populate city. And of course, the query logic gets the city. The province is exactly the same, except, obviously the name is populate province, and the query logic pulls the province, and then again returns value. It's really that simple. So I'll just go, now that we've sort of gone through it once, I'll go back again just to wrap it up. Okay, so we need a lot of folders here, okay? Now you can start wherever you want to start, but I started here because it's how you would do it in SuiteCRM 7. It makes the most sense to me. You start in the detail view, okay? And you edit your field, and you just want to put in your field actions, class, and then the actual action, okay? So, and again, all that comes from, it's a little bit modified, but it all comes from the documentation. You want to do your language file, okay? And if you've developed in SuiteCRM 7, you know exactly where that is. The next thing you want to do is add your extension PHP that just basically tells it that this folder is enabled, okay? And then in your modules, cases, because I'm working in the cases module, service, fields, I have my 3 different handlers, one for each field. Again, I would love to have had one handler that handles all the fields, but it just doesn't support that. Hopefully it does in the future. But anyway, that makes it work. There's multiple different things to try. I'm going to probably, try and do at least one a week or something, and try and do a video for you guys and show you that development in SuiteCRM 8 is not all that scary. And just so you know as well, all the backend stuff that you would have done in SuiteCRM 7 is still exactly the same. So stuff like, before save hooks and all that kind of stuff that you would do in the backend, or schedulers, all that stuff is still there. You can do all that. Endpoints, I built a whole Kanban system for opportunities in the legacy dashboard logic, and then I built my own display on top of that. So basically, again, I avoided Angular completely. But a lot of the things you're used to can still be done, and the things that you kind of did in a hacky way in SuiteCRM 7, like injecting JavaScript and all that stuff into the meta files, now have like organized functional ways of doing it. So anyway, that's what I thought I would share with all. Hopefully that's good news for everyone. I know it's good news for me. And if you need help with SuiteCRM development, please, reach out to me. Please like and subscribe the video. It really helps my channel. And see you next time.